Hello Vita, good evening. Today we are discussing continue your chapter The Rat Trap Seller written by Selma Lazarloff. Your next paragraph. But of course it is you, Niels Olaf, he said. How you do look. The man with the rat traps had never before seen the ironmaster at a Ramso and did not even know what his name was. But it occurred to him that if the fine gentleman thought he was an old acquaintance, old assistant, he might perhaps throw him as a couple of kroner. Therefore, he did not want to undeceive him all at once. Undeceive means to tell someone that his belief is mistaken. When the ironmaster took off the peddler hat, he mistook him as an old friend, old acquaintance, Niels Olaf. The peddler didn't know him nor had he seen this man before, but he thought that if this man mistook him as his old companion and gave him some money out of pity, then it would be a good thing. Therefore, he didn't let him know that he had mistaken him as Niels Olaf. Okay, next paragraph. Yes, God knows things have gone downhill with him, with me. Downhill means rust. You should not have resigned from the regiment. A regiment means a unit in the army or defense forces, said the ironmaster. That was the mistake. If only I had still been in the service at the time, it never would have happened. Well, now of course, you will come home with me. So the paddler started a conversation with the ironmaster by saying that things didn't or went well with him. To this the ironmaster replied that he had made a big mistake by leaving the regiment. He also added that if he would have been working in the regiment when he resigned, he wouldn't have let him to do so. Later on, he invited him to his home to go along up to the miner's house and be received by the honor like an old regimental comrade. That, however, did not please the tramp. No, I couldn't think of it, he said, looking quite alarmed, quite surprised. He thought of the 30 kroner to go up to the manor's house without be liking throwing himself voluntarily into the lion's den. He only wanted a chance to sleep here in the fog and then sneak away as inconsequently. Inconsequently means invisible way, which is not noticeable as possible. The rat trap sellers didn't find it to be a good idea to visit the ironmaster's place. He was frightened with the idea of visiting to the large house of an old soldier, which according to him was not safe. After all, he had the stolen money with him. He didn't want to put himself in danger. His intentions were to sleep in the fog and then go away from there without even being noticed. The ironmaster assumed that he felt embarrassed because of his miserable clothing. And please don't think that I have such a fine home that you cannot show yourself there, he said. Elizabeth is dead, as you may already have heard. But my boys are abroad, and there is no one at home except my oldest daughter and myself. And we were just saying that it was too bad we didn't have any company for Christmas. Now come along with me and help us make the Christmas food disappear a little faster. The ironmaster was aware of his friend's miserable condition, so he tried to make him comfortable by saying that he should feel free to come his home as his home was an ordinary one. He told him that his wife was no more and added that he must be aware of this. Then he let him know that both his sons were settled abroad. Only he and his daughter were left at home. He invited him to celebrate Christmas with his family so that he and his daughter may have some good company at the Christmas feast. But the stranger said no and no and no, and the ironmaster saw that he must give in. It looks as though Captain Bonstelle preferred to stay with you tonight, Sturgeon Storm, he said to the master blacksmith and turned on his heel. Though the ironmaster made many attempts to invite him, the peddler didn't accept his invitation, so at last he says to the blacksmith, Sturgeon Storm, that it seemed that Captain Bonstelle wanted to stay with him in the fog. But he laughed to himself as he went away. And the blacksmith, who knew him, understood very well that he had not said his last word. Then he laughed and went away, but the blacksmith knew that he was hiding something. It was not more than half an hour before they heard the sound of carriage wheels outside the fog. A new guest came in, but this time it was not the ironmaster. He had sent his daughter, apparently hoping that she would have better power of persuasion than he himself. After a gap of half an hour, the ironmaster sent his daughter. He hoped that his daughter may bring his friend home as he believed that she was better in persuading others. She entered, followed by a valet personal attendant, carrying on his arm a big fur coat. She was not at all pretty, but seemed modest and quite shy. In the fog, everything was just as it had been earlier in the evening. The master blacksmith and his apprentice still sat on their bench, and iron and charcoal still glued in the fronts. The stranger had stretched himself out on the floor and lay with a piece of pig iron under his head and his hat pulled down over his eyes. As soon as the young girl cut sight of him, she went up and lifted his hat. The man was evidently used to sleeping with one eye open. He jumped up abruptly and seemed to be quite frightened. The ironmaster's daughter entered the mill with her attendant, who was carrying a big fur coat. She was a humble girl who was very shy. When she entered, everyone was busy the same way as they had been earlier. The blacksmith was still sitting on the bench with his trainees and was working on the iron. She went up to the peddler and lifted his hat. The peddler slept with one eye open as he saw her, he got shocked and jumped up. Okay, beta. This is your today's lecture. Thank you. Have a nice day.